It is an impenetrable stronghold where security is supreme and vast grounds abound. Crucially, they escape surveillance there, finding solace in the rural landscape, far happier than within London's confines. Imagine if your entire understanding of the monarchy was poised for an irreversible transformation. Buckingham Palace stands as the seat of authority, a bastion of custom where confidences are guarded and etiquette is inviolable. Yet on a specific destiny-altering day, an event occurred that rattled the very bedrock of the royal institution. A testament was proclaimed, not merely any legal document, but the concluding will of Queen Elizabeth II. And the individual selected to articulate it was neither King Charles nor Princess Anne, but a figure far more unforeseen. Princess Alexandra. Indeed, you heard correctly. Princess Alexandra, the Queen's first cousin who has dwelled for decades in the royal periphery, was charged with voicing the late sovereign's most intimate final desires. But why her? What knowledge did the Queen possess? And what mysteries lay within that document? For 70 years, Queen Elizabeth II governed with steadfast commitment. Standing as one of history's most enduring monarchs, she observed conflicts, disgraces, victories, and sorrows, binding the monarchy together through insurmountable trials. However, in her concluding deed, she enacted choices that nobody predicted, determinations that have left King Charles enraged, caused Princess Anne to doubt everything, and drove a sharper wedge between Prince William and Prince Harry. What did that testament contain? Who ascended in power? Who lost everything? And why is Buckingham Palace now in total disarray? The reality is more startling than you could ever conceive. As destinies were altered, heritages were contested, and the British monarchy's future now hangs precariously in the balance. Are you prepared to discover what truly transpired behind those palace fortifications? Remain with us as we unveil the volatile particulars of Queen Elizabeth's last will and explore why Princess Alexandra's reading of it has sent tremors through the entire royal clan, because what you are about to hear changes everything. Visualize a majestic chamber within Buckingham Palace, with decorated walls, invaluable art, and centuries of history observing from every angle. This palace remains the world's most renowned royal estate, and the family had assembled there, all united in a single space. A rarity these days. King Charles occupied the head of the table, his countenance a mask of calm, though intimates could detect the strain in his jaw and the slight quiver in his hands. Princess Anne sat to his right, her look decipherable as ever. The woman who never displayed frailty and fulfilled duties without grievance now confronting a moment even she could not fully anticipate. Prince William and Catherine were present as well. Seated closely, William's face was neutral. Yet his eyes betrayed something profound. Perhaps anxiety or anticipation. Then there was Prince Harry. Yes, Harry was present despite everything, the interviews, the memoir, the distance he had established. He had been summoned. His mere attendance generated a tangible strain in the chamber. But the most startling figure was Princess Alexandra. At 88 years of age, Princess Alexandra has led a life of hushed service, born Princess Alexandra of Kent. She is the Queen's first cousin and has executed royal obligations for over 6 decades. Yet she has never pursued the limelight, never provoked scandal, nor demanded acclaim. She is in many regards the overlooked royal who appears, works, and fades into the backdrop. So why did Queen Elizabeth select her to read the testament? That query lingered in the atmosphere as Princess Alexandra entered the space clutching a sealed packet. Her hands, though aged, grasping it securely. Her eyes, though weary, being acute and centered. She surveyed the room, meeting every individual's stare: Charles, Anne, William, Catherine, Harry, Edward, Sophie, Beatrice, Eugenie. Every single one awaited. The envelope was antiquated, sealed with wax bearing the Queen's personal crest. This was not merely a legal paper, but something personal, intimate, and final. Princess Alexandra's voice, when she finally uttered words, was unwavering despite her years. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II entrusted me with this undertaking, asking that I articulate her final desires to all of you gathered here. Why Alexandra? Consider that Charles would have been the logical selection as king. But perhaps that is precisely why the Queen avoided choosing him. She realized that if Charles read the will, it might seem self-interested or generate mistrust. Anne was too closely involved and too emotionally attached. William was too young, representing too much future and insufficient past. No, the Queen required someone impartial, someone relied upon, someone possessing no personal stake in the legacies and verdicts being unveiled. Princess Alexandra was the flawless option. And the Queen understood this. As Alexandra fractured the wax seal, the noise resonated through the hushed room. It felt metaphorical. The shattering of something irreparable. The unlocking of truths that could never again be concealed. She unfolded the sheets cautiously. They were scripted in the Queen's own hand. Not typed or in stiff legal jargon, but in personal terms from a mother, grandmother, and sovereign. "This is my final will and testament," Alexandra read aloud, and those words settled like stones in calm water, generating ripples that would extend far beyond that chamber. Then arrived the initial shock. "To my cherished son Charles," Alexandra commenced, and everyone leaned inward. This was the moment they had all anticipated. But what ensued astonished everyone. "I bequeath you Windsor Castle as is traditional and anticipated. But I also bestow upon you a burden. The duty of ensuring this family stays united. Something I fear I have not wholly achieved in my lifetime." Charles's face paled. This was not merely a heritage. It was a verdict, a confession, a challenge. The Queen was essentially stating, "I attempted but failed. Now it is your turn. Do not fail as I did." Can you visualize hearing those words from your own mother before your entire kin? The room shifted uneasily. This was not going to be a simple recitation of assets and estates, but something far more private and painful. Alexandra proceeded, her voice never faltering. "To my daughter Anne, I leave Sandringham Estate. You have been my anchor, my constant, my most reliable child. If I could have divided the crown itself, I would have shared it with you." Anne's poise fractured just slightly, her lips compressed. Her eyes shimmered, yet she refused to let tears drop. Sandringham was the Queen's winter sanctuary, the location where the family convened every Christmas. This was not just real estate. This was home. But there was something else in those phrases. "If I could have split the crown itself." What did that signify? Was the Queen implying that Anne should have been queen? That she would have been better adapted for the position? The ramifications were staggering. Then Alexandra read something that caused the entire room to freeze. "To my grandson Harry." You could hear the collective inhalation of breath. Harry sat more erect. William's jaw tightened, and Charles looked aside. Alexandra continued, "I leave you the silver box of King George VI, which holds letters composed during the bleakest days of World War II. These missives speak of obligation, sacrifice, and the anguish of being severed from family for the greater good. I hope they remind you that distance is not identical to abandonment, and that family ties, though stressed, need not be severed." Silence, absolute and total silence, ensued. The message was explicit. The Queen was speaking straight to Harry regarding his choice to depart the royal family. She was telling him that even King George VI, who never desired to be king and suffered for his duty, had discovered a way to remain linked to what mattered. Was this absolution, or was it a mild reprimand? Harry's expression was indecipherable, but those watching closely saw his hands clutch the chair arms firmly. William stared directly ahead, his face like granite, but internally a tempest was brewing. Why should Harry receive anything when he had departed, abandoned his obligations, and criticized the family publicly? Yet the Queen had recalled him, honored him, included him? The bombshell no one foresaw arrived as Princess Alexandra turned to the subsequent page. Her fingers moving deliberately over the aged paper, the room stayed locked and strained quiet. Every eye fastened on her. "Regarding Balmoral Castle," she began, and this was the instant everyone had awaited. Balmoral was the Queen's most adored property, the royal family's vacation home in Scotland, the place where she passed her summers and where she died. Customarily, such estates transferred to a single heir, usually the monarch, in this instance King Charles. But the Queen possessed other schemes. Alexandra's voice was lucid and intentional. "Balmoral Castle shall not belong to one individual. Instead, it shall be held in trust for the entire clan. Charles, Anne, Andrew, Edward, and their progeny. It shall endure as a place where we all congregate, where rifts are set aside, and where the memory of unity triumphs over the actuality of discord." The room erupted, not in noise, but in sentiment. Charles's face flushed crimson. This was unprecedented. As royal estates did not function this way, power consolidated. It did not scatter. By making Balmoral a communal property, the Queen had executed something radical. She had compelled them to collaborate, to communicate, to stay linked whether they desired to or not. Reflect on what this implies. Charles cannot sell it. He cannot alter it without the consent of others. And he does not possess total control. For a new king attempting to solidify his authority, this was a colossal restriction. But there was brilliance in it too. The Queen knew that without something binding them together, the family could fracture entirely. Balmoral was her insurance policy. Anne grasped this instantly. A slight smile playing at her mouth's corners, she saw what her mother had done, creating an obligation that surpassed personal grievances. But William saw it differently. This meant Harry still held a stake. Harry, who had left, who had assailed them in interviews and books, was still being granted access, still being included. William's frustration was tangible. He leaned over and whispered something to Catherine, who placed a soothing hand on his arm. Alexandra, sensing the strain, continued reading without interruption. To my granddaughter-in-law Catherine, I leave the Vladimir tiara, which has been worn by queens and princesses for generations. You have demonstrated grace under impossible stress, and you will require every ounce of that poise in the years ahead. Catherine's eyes expanded. The Vladimir tiara was not merely valuable. It was iconic, having been one of the Queen's favorites. But there was something else in those words. You will need every ounce of that grace in the years to come. What did the Queen know? And what was approaching that would demand such fortitude? The answer arrived in the next paragraph. I fear, Alexandra read, that the trials facing this family will only grow more arduous. The world is transforming. The monarchy must evolve with it. But change must not signify the desertion of our core values. I have attempted to show you what those principles are. I only hope I triumphed. These were not merely words of bequest. These were words of caution. The Queen was telling them, you are not prepared for what is coming. But you must be. Then came the moment that truly rattled Buckingham Palace to its center. To my grandson William, Alexandra continued, I leave something that may encumber you more than honor you. I leave you my private journals. Decades of my reflections, fears, doubts, and verdicts. I have never shared these with anyone. But I want you to comprehend that the crown is not a prize to be won. It is a weight to be borne. And you must determine if you are truly willing to bear it. William's face went pale. Private journals. Decades of the Queen's most inner thoughts. This was not just a heritage. This was a test. Why give this to William and not to Charles? What was in those diaries that the Queen wanted William specifically to know? Charles shifted in his seat. Clearly uneasy. Was his mother questioning his fitness to govern? Or was she suggesting that William should be preparing differently? The psychological warfare of this instant was intense. But Alexandra was not finished. I also leave William the Duchy of Lancaster papers. Documents that detail the true fiscal state of the monarchy. Information that has been kept from public view but which he must comprehend if he is to one day lead. Financial documents. Secret intelligence. This was immense. The Duchy of Lancaster is one of the primary sources of the monarch's private revenue. By giving William access to this data now rather than waiting until he becomes king, the Queen was essentially saying, start preparing, learn the reality, do not be blindsided. But it also signified something else. She did not trust that Charles would share this intelligence when the time arrived. Was the Queen shielding William from his own father? The ramifications were staggering, and the tension in the room had reached a breaking point. Prince Edward, who had remained mute throughout, finally spoke up, saying quietly, Mother wanted us to have transparency. She wanted us to know the truth. All of it. Charles shot him a glare. But Edward did not retreat. Then Princess Alexandra delivered the ultimate blow. There is one more stipulation, she said, her voice growing gentler. One more petition from Her Majesty. Everyone held their breath. The provision that altered everything. Princess Alexandra's hands quivered slightly as she turned to the final sheet. Whatever was written here. She knew it would be the most contentious part of all. Her Majesty's final provision. Alexandra began. Concerns the future architecture of the monarchy itself. King Charles sat up straighter. This was his domain now. So what could his mother possibly have dictated about how he should govern? Alexandra continued. I have witnessed the monarchy evolve over 7 decades. I have seen it survive wars, scandals, and cultural shifts. But I fear the greatest trial is yet to arrive. Therefore, I make this request, though I cannot enforce it legally. I hope morally it will be honored. A request that could not be legally enforced was entering perilous territory. I ask that within the first 5 years of Charles's reign, a full review be conducted of the monarchy's function in modern Britain. This assessment should include input not just from the royal family, but from Parliament, historians, and most crucially, the British people themselves. The room erupted, this time audibly. "That is absurd," Charles exclaimed, his poise finally shattering. "She is asking us to question our own existence." Anne remained tranquil, saying, "No, she is asking us to justify our existence. There is a distinction." William and Harry exchanged a rare look of accord. For once they were thinking the identical thing. That the Queen had been far more progressive than anyone realized. But Alexandra was not finished. Furthermore, she read, "I request that all members of the royal family who receive public funding should provide annual transparent reports of their activities and expenditures. The era of secrecy must cease if the monarchy is to endure. Transparency, accountability, public oversight. These were terms that had never been associated with the royal family before." The Queen was essentially dismantling the veil of mystery that had shielded the monarchy for centuries. Edward nodded slowly, saying she is right. The people deserve to know how their money is being utilized. This is a betrayal. Charles snapped. She is undermining everything we stand for. No, father. William interjected quietly. She is trying to save us from ourselves. The schism was clear. Charles saw this as an assault on royal authority, while William saw it as necessary evolution. But there was still more. Alexandra's voice grew even softer. "I also request, and this is perhaps my most intimate wish, that efforts be made to reconcile the rift between my grandsons William and Harry. They were once inseparable, and I hope they can be so again. Not for the sake of appearances, but for their own well-being and for the vigor of this family." Harry's head lowered, and William's jaw clenched. The Queen had done it again. She had forced them to confront something they had both been avoiding. Catherine reached over and took William's hand. Meghan was not present, but you could feel her absence in that moment. "The bonds of family," Alexandra read, "are stronger than any disagreement, any hurt, any pride. I leave this world hoping that truth will be remembered." Then came the final paragraph, the one that would be debated for years to come. "Lastly, I have established a private trust, details of which are sealed for 10 years, which will ensure that certain members of this family will have financial security independent of the crown. This is to prevent anyone from feeling trapped by circumstances or obligation. Everyone should have the liberty to choose their path, even if that path leads away from royal duty." Silence. Absolute silence. What did this signify? Who was included in this trust? And why was it sealed for 10 years? Harry sat perfectly still. Was this meant for him? Was the Queen providing him with an exit strategy, ensuring he would not be financially dependent on the family he had left? Or was it meant for someone else? One of the younger royals who might one day desire to leave? Charles looked like he had been struck. His mother had essentially created an escape fund, as the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion. "I too now solemnly pledged myself away for royals to leave if they desired." This was not just about inheritance anymore, this was about freedom. Choice. The right to walk away. Princess Alexandra folded the papers carefully and placed them back in the envelope. "That concludes Her Majesty's will," she said softly, "for your dedication and the wonderful work you do. She asked me to remind you all that she loved you deeply, even when love had to take the form of difficult decisions." No one moved. No one spoke. The implications were massive. Balmoral was now shared property, forcing cooperation among the family members. William had access to secret financial information, creating a separate power base. Catherine had received a symbolic tiara signaling her future role. Harry had been given historical letters, a message about duty and family. Charles had been given a mandate to review and modernize, limiting his traditional authority, and a secret trust existed providing escape routes. The Queen had not just divided her property, she had redesigned the entire power structure of the royal family. And she had done it in a way that no one could have predicted. As the reading concluded, The family slowly began to process what they just heard. But processing and accepting were two very different things. King Charles stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need time to think about this," he said tersely, before walking out of the room. Anne watched him go, then turned to Princess Alexandra saying simply, "Thank you. I know that was not easy." Alexandra nodded, noting, "Your mother chose me because she knew I would read it exactly as written without commentary or judgment." Which was what she wanted. But why did the Queen make these specific choices? Let us break it down. By making Balmoral a shared estate, the Queen ensured that no one person could control it. This forces the family to communicate, negotiate, and cooperate. It prevents Charles from selling it or changing its character. And it keeps Harry connected to the family whether William likes it or not. Regarding the financial transparency request, the Queen saw what was happening in the world. She watched as public opinion shifted and understood that the British people were increasingly questioning the value of the monarchy. By requesting financial transparency, she was trying to future-proof the institution. The secret trust is perhaps the most fascinating provision, by creating a trust that provides financial independence. The Queen was acknowledging something revolutionary. That royal duty should be a choice, not a prison. Think about what happened with Harry. He left but he had no financial security. The press themselves have incited so much hatred towards myself, my wife, and even our children, which made things messier and more desperate. If this trust had existed earlier, his exit might have been cleaner. Is the Queen saying that royals should have the right to leave? That forcing people to stay only weakens the institution? That is a radical idea and it flies in the face of everything the monarchy has traditionally stood for. Regarding the reconciliation request, the Queen knew that the rift between William and Harry was tearing the family apart. And she also knew she could not force them to reconcile. But by making it her dying wish, she applied the maximum possible pressure. How can they refuse? How can they ignore their grandmother's final request? Yet reconciliation is not something that can be mandated, it requires genuine healing, forgiveness, and time. William felt the weight of this expectation. He knew the world would be watching, waiting to see if he would honor his grandmother's wish. But he also felt betrayed. Harry had hurt him, hurt Catherine, hurt the institution. So was he supposed to just forgive and forget? Harry too felt conflicted. He had left for his mental health, for Meghan, for his children. So coming back even partially felt like erasing all the progress he had made. But their grandmother had asked, and that carried weight that nothing else could. As the family slowly departed, small conversations broke out. Catherine and Anne spoke quietly in a corner. Two women who had married into the family, both understanding the unique pressures that came with that choice. Edward approached William saying, "She gave you those journals for a reason. Read them carefully. I think you will find they explain a lot about the decisions she made and the ones you will have to make." William nodded, still processing everything. And then there was the moment everyone was watching for. William and Harry standing near each other, closer than they had been in years. Neither spoke at first. The silence between them was heavy with history, hurt, and unspoken words. Finally, William broke the silence saying, "She wanted us to try." Harry nodded, replying, "I know. I don't know if I can." William admitted, "I don't know if I can either." It was honest, raw, and real. They did not hug. They did not reconcile. But they acknowledged the truth. Their grandmother had asked something of them and they owed it to her memory to at least consider it. You might be wondering why you should care about a royal will and what this has to do with you. Everything. Because this is not just about wealth or titles or properties, this is about family. About legacy. About the choices we make and the consequences that follow. Think about your own family. Have you ever had to divide inheritance? Watched family members fight over money or possessions? Felt the burden of family expectations? Or struggled with reconciling with someone you once loved? These are universal human experiences. And the royal family, despite all their privilege and wealth, deals with the same issues. The Queen's will raises some profound questions. Does financial security trap us or free us? The secret trust implies that having independent wealth allows people to make authentic choices rather than staying in a situation out of obligation. Should families force unity or allow distance? The Balmoral provision forces connection. But is forced connection genuine or does it breed resentment? Can public institutions survive without transparency? The Queen's request for financial openness acknowledges that secrecy breeds suspicion in the modern world. Is reconciliation always possible or even desirable? The request for William and Harry to reconcile sounds noble. But is it fair to pressure people to forgive before they are ready? What legacy do we want to leave? These are questions that get to the heart of human relationships. Freedom and accountability. The Queen's will is ultimately about legacy. What she wanted to leave behind. What she hoped her family would become. What legacy are you creating? And what will people say about your choices when you are gone? These questions matter because they are about more than royalty. News of the will's contents did not stay secret for long. Within days, details had leaked to the press. Though whether officially or through family members remains unclear. The British public was divided. Team tradition argued that the Queen had overstepped. As monarchies work because of clear succession and concentrated power. So by dispersing control and requesting transparency, she had weakened the institution. Team modernization praised the Queen's forward-thinking approach, arguing that the only way the monarchy survives is by adapting to contemporary values of accountability and choice. International observers watched with fascination as monarchies around the world began questioning their own structures. If even Queen Elizabeth II recognized the need for change. What did that mean for other royal families? The Queen's will sparked a media frenzy with hashtags trending for weeks. The royal family was abuzz with debates about whether Charles would honor all the requests, while Harry and Meghan faced both praise and criticism. Meanwhile, William and Catherine's future role was being analyzed endlessly, and memes about family inheritance drama proliferated. It was clear the Queen's decisions had significant implications for the monarchy's future. King Charles had already made some grand gestures, like fulfilling a secret promise to Princess Catherine, which had left Queen Camilla speechless. The media scrutiny was intense, with some outlets framing the decisions as bold assertions of independence while others expressed concern about the long-term implications for royal tradition. But beneath the jokes and debates there was something deeper. Recognition. People recognized their own families in this story. The inheritance disputes, the unresolved conflicts, the burden of expectations, the desire for freedom versus the pull of loyalty. The Queen's will had become a mirror reflecting our own struggles back at us. So where does the royal family go from here? King Charles faces impossible choices. Will he honor his mother's request for a monarchy review knowing it could limit his power? Will he implement financial transparency, exposing royal spending to public scrutiny? Will he maintain the Balmoral arrangement or try to challenge it legally? Will he pressure William and Harry to reconcile or let them find their own path? Each decision will define his reign, and each choice will be judged against his mother's legacy. Prince William must navigate tricky waters. What will he do with the private journals? Read them immediately, wait, or share them with his father? Or keep them private? How will he use the financial information he has been given? Will he reach out to Harry or wait for Harry to come to him? How will he prepare for a kingship that looks very different from what his father expected? Prince Harry has decisions to make too. Will he accept the olive branch his grandmother offered? Will he remain distant or try to rebuild bridges? How will he explain this to Meghan and his children? Will he wait to see what is in the sealed trust, hoping it provides him with long-term security? Princess Anne continues to be the steady presence, the reliable one, managing Sandringham as the Queen would have wanted, serving as the voice of experience when conflicts arise and honoring her mother's memory through continued dedication. Catherine prepares for a role that grows more significant every day. She will wear the Vladimir tiara not just as jewelry but as a symbol of responsibility. Support William through the challenges ahead, and raise George, Charlotte, and Louis with an understanding of both privilege and duty. And Princess Alexandra. She returns to her quiet life, having fulfilled the most significant royal duty of her long career. She read the words her cousin asked her to read, delivered the message without bias or interference, and her role is complete. But the impact of those words will echo for generations. Queen Elizabeth II ruled for 70 years. She witnessed the world transform around her. She adapted when she could, held firm when she must, and always put the institution above personal feelings. But in her final act she did something revolutionary. She chose people over protocol. By sharing Balmoral, she chose family connection over traditional succession. By requesting transparency, she chose public trust over royal mystique. By establishing the sealed trust, she chose individual freedom over institutional obligation. And by asking for reconciliation between William and Harry, she chose healing over pride. These were not the decisions of a traditional monarch. These were the decisions of a grandmother who understood that love, real love, sometimes means setting people free rather than binding them tighter. Princess Alexandra's reading of the will was more than just fulfilling a duty. It was delivering a final message from a woman who had dedicated her entire life to service but who also understood the human cost of that service. The Queen's final words can be summarized in one powerful truth. The monarchy survives not because of tradition but because of relevance. And relevance requires change, transparency, and above all genuine human connection. The Queen's will was not just about dividing property. It was about defining values. About sending a final message about what matters most. And that message was clear: family unity, truth, and the courage to change when change is necessary. Buckingham Palace may have trembled when Princess Alexandra read those words. But perhaps that trembling was necessary. Perhaps it was the shake-up the monarchy needed to survive another 70 years. Only time will tell if the royal family can honor the Queen's final wishes. But one thing is certain: they can never ignore them. What would your final will say? What legacy do you want to leave? And are you living in a way that honors that legacy right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the Queen made the right decisions? Should Charles honor all her requests? And can this family ever truly heal? If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more royal revelations and untold stories from behind palace walls, because the story does not end here. The real drama is just beginning, and we will be here to cover every moment.